Today we're back with the 2024 Lexus GX 550, except today we are driving the Overtrail, and it's an Overtrail Plus. So we get all the bells and whistles. We have a Mark Levinson sound system. We have multi-terrain select, crawl control, 33-inch tires. We're actually going to be road tripping this a little bit, driving it on a huge variety of roads, maybe even seeing a little bit of snow up in the mountains. We'll see. We're going to be taking this off-road in another video, but today I wanted to give you guys some in-depth driving impressions on what this is like on road, because at the launch event, I actually didn't get a chance to really drive one of these Overtrail GXs very much. So let's get started. We'll do a brief walk around and tell you guys what this thing is like to live with and experience. So what you need to know, we have a 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 that makes 349 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque. That's made it to a 10-speed automatic transmission. Of course, this is a GX. It's full-time four-wheel drive. We have a 2-speed transfer case, 4 high, 4 low, a locking center, and a locking rear differential. We also get some really nice, luxurious amenities and finishings in this Overtrail Plus. We have this kind of suede green liner to the seats, some contrast stitching, kind of a darker, more serious interior in this new GX. Not as much color yet. We'll see as the model line progresses, as the years go on. We do have a little bit of green inserted with hexagonal pattern in there. I'm not sure if you can see that through the camera. This GX 550 is painted in earth with the black roof. It looks proper. We have a slightly higher ground clearance in this Overtrail. That's mostly due to the increased tire size. These are 33-inch open country AT all-terrain tires in 265/70 R18s. Nice to see some beefy, meaty sidewall. One thing I did notice on these tires is that the tread depth isn't as deep as you would normally expect for a set of these all-terrains. I assume that's to reduce noise and maybe improve on-road handling. So we'll see how these do today. We have 8.9 inches of ground clearance now in this GX 550 Overtrail. This can tow a little bit over 9,000 pounds too, which is very impressive. Premium fuel only. And of course, like we've gone over in our previous GX videos, no swing out barn door tailgate. This lifts up and it's power operated. Got some bedding, some suitcases back here, but for the most part, about a similar load space that we got in the previous GX. In this Overtrail, you cannot spec it with a third row. That may be an option in the future. So you actually do get a little bit more load floor here in this GX without that third row in there. A little bit lower of a load floor, which is very nice. Lexus claims that in their research of how their customers use their GXs when they're going overlanding and off-roading, they tend to delete the third rows anyway, so they just decided to do it from the factory. Second row, back seats look very nice. We get grab handles to get back up in here. Running boards feel pretty solid. We have some nicer, thicker floor mats in this Overtrail Plus. Rear window shades, heated rear seats. For almost 80 grand, it's a very well equipped and very nice driving SUV. Personally, I would probably swing for just the standard Overtrail for about $69,000. But if you want all the options, this Overtrail Plus is a good way to go too. It seems kind of like an overbuilt, under-stressed engine. The power numbers here for this being a 3.4 liter twin turbo, only making 349 horsepower, seems like these are just tiny turbos. The goal here is still reliability and longevity. This Overtrail Plus does drive a little bit smoother than some of the other pre-production GXs that I have driven. It's quiet, it's refined, it's a nice motor, it sounds good, it's not too loud. Rated for 15 miles to the gallon in the city, 21 on the highway. We'll see how it performs today on our long distance route. Love the look of this new GX. This just looks proper. These 33-inch tires seem to have plenty of clearance. Let's see what that looks like at lock here. Yeah, you could probably even fit larger tires on here, no problem. No longer the issue with that frame getting in the way there of the tire clearance. Only the GX Overtrail gets EKDSS, which is electronically controlled. It can independently control on each side the amount of sway bar articulation. That should improve on-road handling and off-road articulation. Kind kind of a shame that that is not included on every GX trim. So we'll see how this Overtrail differs from the other GXs that we drove. Spent some time in the Luxury Plus and the Premium Plus, and I have a feeling this is going to be my favorite. So let's hop inside, we'll go for a drive, and we'll start to give you guys some driving impressions. CarPlay connects wirelessly. We've got our first waypoint here loaded up on the map. Everything seems to respond pretty quickly in this infotainment. You can have CarPlay be full screen and you kind of lose your quick access controls there to the left, or slightly less full screen and you can access things like vehicle settings, your phone, music, the native navigation. A pretty easy to use infotainment. I do like that we get some constant icons here for climate control. Overall, this interior feels very high quality. I love the physical controls on the steering wheel as opposed to what Lexus is doing in some of their other models. The gauge cluster display is a little bit dark, but shows you all the information you can kind of really want. You can configure it between 3 different gauge views, all customizable. We have a head-up display that shows us some information. Buttons over here for 3-seat memory settings. You can turn off rear collision at a press of a button. That's nice. Or rear parking support. Pop the tailgate. Auto up-down windows on all 4 corners. A nice flat dashboard. It's a good-looking SUV, and the materials and everything in here feel up to par with in terms of quality to the price point. Honestly, they kind of over-deliver in some respects. This is a very nice interior, nice place to spend time. The only thing that really maybe doesn't feel as high quality are just these dials here for our temperature adjustment. But everything else is some of the nicest quality materials that I've seen from Lexus in their new vehicles. Biggest thing you notice with this new GX is just the level of quietness. It is so silent. I have awesome visibility. Steering is light. Here are the guys here. Chris and the Tacoma TRD Off-Road. How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah.
New Lexus GX.
New Lexus GX. I'm so excited to drive this thing, man. It's going to be fun.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Well, I'll follow you.
Sounds good. And then we've got Charlie here in the GMC Canyon AT4X AEV edition with a trailer that we have rented last minute from RV Share, kind of a company like Airbnb, but for campers. You can rent trailers from people and take them out for a night, which is exactly what we're doing. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. And we'll probably tow with this GX on the way home, show you guys what that's like, make a separate towing video, since this is rated for 9,000 pounds, and that's rated for about 55? Six. Okay, that's pretty good, actually. Nice. That's better than what the new Raptor is going to be, Ranger Raptor.
Wow.
Yeah, Ranger Raptor is going to be like 55 or so.
Over 9,000 pounds.
I know, that was a big surprise. We got invited to the launch. We were at the launch. They told us 8, and then that night at dinner they told us 9,000 pound towing capacity. So a lot of capability from this GX.
Gained 1,000 pounds overnight.
I know. It's hefty, but in a good way.
Yeah.
The right kind of pounds.
All right.
All right, I guess I'll lead.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. All right, so this GX 550 Overtrail Plus has been passed around a little bit. I think the last person to review it was Doug DeMuro. So it's got some miles on it. We've got 1,400 miles. It's kind of gone broken in some, and it's been used, which means that calibration, transmission, programming, it's all kind of set up and ready to go. This actually feels pretty nice. This is the nicest GX that I've driven so far among all the pre-production prototypes that I've tested. Gear changes are super smooth. This 10-speed feels awesome. The 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6, quiet, no vibrations like I had in the first Premium Plus that I tested. This thing just feels awesome. Still quite a bit of body roll around corners, but it's actually really nice to have a soft, cushy, somewhat squishy SUV to drive around. I feel like every SUV these days is trying to be a performance car at the same time, and this GX is just honest about what it is and what its purpose is. This is meant to be a luxury off-roader to kind of rival the Land Rover Defender. And we've got a Defender 130 right up ahead of us. I think it does a really good job at that. If not, maybe even a slightly better job than the Defender. Power is just awesome. It's so nice to have torque in a GX like this. Yes, I do miss the V8. I miss the sound that it made. I miss the smoothness, but the extra torque and power here, I think, make up for it. Setting off from a start, seamless gear changes. Love, love, love the visibility that you get out of this GX 550. It feels old school for that reason, just because you can see so well out of it. A-pillar is relatively thin. Again, this is just great. Even my blind spots, I can see quite well. We have a bunch of different drive modes, probably too many drive modes, if I'm being honest. Sport Plus, Sport, Normal, Comfort, Eco, and a custom mode. Let's try Sport Plus, see how this gets off the line. A healthy amount of power there. Not too impressed with the speed and responsiveness from these paddle shifters, but again, not a sports car. And in sport mode, adaptive variable suspension should be a little bit stiffer too. There's still some body roll on turn in, maybe not as much. Very close gear ratios. A little bit slow to switch between drive modes, but honestly, I don't really think it does a whole lot. Sport Plus does make the ride a little bit busier, but not by too much. "65 miles an hour. Very little wind noise. And just a little bit of noise from those all-terrain tires. Not as much as I was expecting for how aggressive they look. It's got to be partially that slightly lower tread depth, improving upon tire noise at speed. Steering assist seems to be doing a pretty good job guiding us in the lanes here. You can easily disable that right here with that button. Oh, this just rides so soft. It's really comfortable. And I've heard that the seat bolstering on this Overtrail is a little bit thicker, just to kind of help you when you're jostling around in that seat off-road. You're getting tossed around a little bit more on the trail. This Overtrail has slightly more support than the other models. This is the trim to get with this new GX. Oh, it's just so good. At highway speeds, gearbox doesn't downshift through a ton of gears. It allows you to use that torque that this engine has. Yes, it's a 10-speed auto, but it's not a busy transmission. It acts more like a 6 or an 8-speed, if I'm being honest. Zero rattles, zero shakes in this cabin. Everything is so solid, so well bolted together. That's been a common theme among all the GX 550s that we've driven. Only wind noise I'm getting is just a little bit from the top of the windshield. Since this is a very vertical, flat windscreen, some of that is unavoidable. This GX still feels reasonably maneuverable. It has grown in size. It is wider, a little bit longer and taller than the previous generation GX, but it still feels easy to place on the road and not too wide or cumbersome. Part of that is just because of the great visibility that it has. I spent some time in the Toyota Tundra a couple months ago. It was just so massive, and the visibility was so poor from pretty much every direction. You just couldn't see out of it, that it was so tedious to drive on a regular basis. I felt the same way with the Land Cruiser too, and the new LX. This gets it right. This is kind of that Goldilocks perfect size for an SUV. See how it does on the trails later today and tomorrow, but I have a feeling it's just going to be about right for everything. You can put a bunch of stuff in the back of this. Rear seats have plenty of room. And this Overtrail, without that third row, there is a lot more cargo capacity in here in the back behind that second row. I'm sure some buyers will want the option to have a third row in their Overtrail, and I will admit, as a previous GX owner, I did use the third row on occasion, and it was nice when I had it. It would be nice if Lexus just gave buyers the choice. Because otherwise, I feel like, what's the big sell to this over the Land Cruiser when that comes out? If you want something off-road capable, yes, this has the nicer interior and the 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6, but the Land Cruiser is going to get better fuel economy. It's going to only be a 2-row SUV, and you'll save quite a bit of money. And for the hardcore overlander off-roader, that might be a better choice. One thing I'm noticing, just driving this around a little bit today, the head-up display does have kind of a narrow viewing angle. So if you're kind of adjusting your seating position, you're either a little bit too low and it's distorted and kind of started to fade out of view, or you're a little bit too high and it just kind of almost vanishes. And you have to go through quite a few menu selections to readjust the head-up display position. So that actually might be something I eventually turn off. We'll see. I'm pretty much getting all the information I need in my fully digital gauge cluster. All right, so those are some initial highway driving impressions. The takeaways here, just driving around normally around town, no major difference noticed with the EKDSS at speed, on entrance ramps. Okay, maybe it's a little bit stiffer, a little bit less body roll around corners, but this doesn't quite have the sharpness to the handling that the previous Gen GX had. And I noted that in my previous videos. This just feels a little bit heftier, a little bit more wallowy, a little bit softer, and that's fine. EKDSS, I don't think, makes a huge difference in this Overtrail in terms of on-road handling and sportiness. So, okay, maybe Lexus is still just trying to keep this very soft and squishy like the other trims. I'm totally fine with that. Let's pick up in the mountains. We'll see how this handles on some back roads, and we'll continue the video there. All right, we're back. Spent some more time in this on the highway. The driving assistance features in this new GX550 work really well. The lane tracing assist is fantastic. The adaptive cruise control works really well. There's also some ways to customize that in the infotainment. Its responsiveness, its kind of behavior. So that was really neat to play with a little bit when we stopped. But honestly, the tech in this car is just so seamless. It works really, really well. Now, as you can see, we're on a twistier back road. It's raining a little bit, so it's a little bit greasy out. But let's throw this into sport mode and see how it handles some of these winding mountain roads. I'm honestly not noticing a huge difference in the suspension tuning between this Overtrail with EKDSS and the standard GX. Maybe there's just a little bit less body roll. It is still a little bit wallowy around a corner, but that could be tire rollover too. I will say I'm not noticing a huge difference in handling and body control between this Overtrail and the premium that I was driving. It is more compliant and less busy of a suspension setup than the Luxury Plus that I was in, and that could just be down to tire differences. That Luxury Plus had 22-inch wheels. This has 18s with 33s, and there's just a lot more sidewall and compliance here. Actually, let's maybe bump it up into Sport Plus mode and see how this adaptive suspension reacts. This is a very smooth section of pavement that we're on. I might even play with this in manual mode too. I mean, the big takeaways are power is awesome. this isn't necessarily as athletic of a vehicle as it used to be, which is fine. It's more oriented towards comfort. Steering, it's weighting up a little bit in sport mode. There is a sport steering setting in this GX. Tires do quite well in the wet. That's nice. And this is so much more compliant and comfortable than the Luxury Plus was. Those 22-inch wheels are just, they're kind of ridiculous if I'm being honest. Pretty decent back road here. I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's a faster vehicle out here on these roads because of the power and torque. This GX feels like a much naturally smaller vehicle than the LX 600, but it kind of shares some character with it, at least around a corner. Similar weight to the steering, kind of a bit of resistance on throttle as you're turning through these back roads. It's pretty good to drive. It's just so solid and so unflappable. Been averaging decent fuel economy on the way up here. About 23, 24 miles to the gallon on the highway. And then in some stop and go traffic and just driving a little bit spiritedly right now up this mountain, we're down to about 17 miles to the gallon. So I think if you're staying out of boost, this can be reasonably efficient. If you're going to be driving this a little bit harder, you're going to burn through some gas. I'm at a little over 3/4 of a tank, and it says I have 188 miles of range. I made some comments on the Mark Levinson sound systems in previous videos, and I actually may have taken those out because I haven't edited those videos yet. These pre-production Mark Levinson sound systems have not been calibrated and tuned. They're not in their final form, so I'm not going to comment on them in relation to the previous generation Mark Levinson sound systems. The previous GX had the Mark Levinson in that is just one of the best sound systems at any price, and it's amazing because that sound system was in that car for so long. Yes, they maybe tweaked it and adjusted it over time throughout its life cycle, but I have high hopes for this new generation. We've got to get into a production GX to really see how it performs. The base sound system sounded good. This new Mark Levinson in pre-production form, I wasn't that impressed with it, but ultimately this isn't how it's going to sound to customer vehicles. So we will wait and reserve our judgment on that until we get a production GX. And so sorry, we can't really report on that too much, but that's just the state of these pre-production prototype vehicles that we have in the press fleets right now. All right, well, we're gonna wrap up our video here for the street driving review on this GX 550. I actually need to swap vehicles with substitute Topher. I'm gonna take the Tacoma, he's gonna take this and do his review. We will revisit the GX 550 Overtrail Plus off-road and get a proper off-road test on this rig. So we'll see how it does. Fortunately, we got kind of rained out at the launch event of the GX, and we weren't able to do the off-road course that so many other journalists were able to do. But today we've actually got some legit trails to encounter, and we'll see how the rain and the weather is in the desert. But I have high hopes for the way this should perform off-road, especially with all the new multi-terrain select and crawl control settings. This will be pretty impressive. Locking rear diff, more ground clearance, better tires. This GX is finally the off-road capable SUV that it's always kind of intended to be, but hasn't quite been realized in the United States. And it does the luxury thing very, very well. It's super comfortable on the street. I've loved driving this today. It is kind of that ultimate perfect SUV in my mind. It's probably gonna be pretty reliable. The price is higher, but not outrageous. Personally, I would swing for just a regular Overtrail, get in just shy of 70 grand, and that would be a fantastic vehicle to live with. All right, we'll leave you guys at that. Stay tuned for some more videos on the GX coming soon. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. And it just looks so good too. One thing I did not mention is that you can fit a full-size 33-inch spare tire in the spare tire well of this GX 550 Overtrail. That is nice. Something you couldn't quite do in the previous generation. I think with the sway bar in the way and everything in the old GX 460, you could fit about a 31.5-inch tire back there, and maybe a slightly larger one if you deflated it, but it wasn't an ideal situation for overlanders. A lot of people resorted to hitch carriers or just different mounting situations with a swing out tailgate. And this Overtrail, you can fit 33s back there, maybe even slightly larger. Who knows? All things that we will learn as the aftermarket attacks these cars with lots of accessories and things. Also, another thing I'm wondering is, I wonder if this is kind of, this plastic piece here, this is removable if you bang it up and easily replaceable. These are all kind of separate pieces. I wonder if this is kind of the spot where the bumper cuts are going to happen. And if you could put like a bash bar right here, and same with the back, if aftermarket companies are going to take advantage of this right here, just remove this, put a bash bar around the bottom, have your tow hitch hang a little bit below. Yes, it's not going to be pretty, but it's going to be functional. That might be a pretty good solution. We'll see what transpires in the coming weeks, months, and years with this new GX, which I'm sure will be around for the next decade and a half at least.